Hello, boys and girls of Credit Union Land, and welcome to the 10th episode of the CUInsight Experience. Wow, we're 10 episodes in. This is so much fun. My name is Randy Smith. I am one of the co-founders and the publisher of CUInsight.com, and it is my job on the show to have conversations with the best and the brightest from around the credit union community. I get to pick their brains and hopefully find a few nuggets that we can all learn from. My guest today is Miss Sam Paxson. She's the Chief Experience Officer at Co-op Financial Services and the founder of Co-op Think. You can find a link to Sam's bio and everything we talked about in the show notes below. Let me give you a little bit of background on this episode. I was home one night a few weeks back and registering for this year's Think conference. Jill and I were having a conversation about what an amazing event Sam has built. And then Jill said to me, it would be awesome to have a conversation with Sam about having the audacity over a decade ago to go out and create this type of event. I had the title for this episode before Sam even agreed to be on it. I didn't wait until morning. I shot Sam a message with the idea. She said yes, and here we are. In this episode, we talk about the origins of Co-op Think. We went back to 12 years ago when Sam wasn't in senior management, and her pitch, what it was to senior management at that time, how she got the buy-in. We talked about how Sam measures success and failure. We talked about human integration in a digital world and how cool it had to have been for Simon Sinek to share an article that she wrote to his millions of followers. We also, as always, dig into the leadership and life hacks and wrap it all up, getting to know Sam a little bit better with the rapid fire questions. Man, this was a fun conversation to have. Sam gave my favorite answer to date on who she thinks of when she hears the word success. I think you're really going to love this episode. So without further ado, I give you my conversation with Miss Sam Paxson. Enjoy. Sam, thank you for joining me today on the show. I am so excited to talk to you.
I'm so excited to be here. I think this is the coolest thing ever. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you, like I said, for being here. I was really looking forward to talking to you from the second I knew that I was starting a podcast. You were one of the first people I reached out to because I have so many questions for you. So
I can't wait. Fire away.
Let's jump right into it then. I want to talk about Co-op Think, your baby, but not necessarily this year. We will touch on that a little bit later in the show, and I will link everywhere to it. But really, the pre-Co-op Think, the start of it, when you looked out there and you're imagining a conference, something that's completely different from, let's just say, a traditional conference in a traditional industry, what was it that motivated you to start Co-op Think?
Well, it's interesting. I came to Co-op in 2005. And when the first 10 years of my career, I worked in strategic consulting and marketing consulting for action sports and luxury brands and automotive and hotels. And these industries were all about ideas and innovation and standing out. And it was all about this tremendous energy. And when I came to Co-op and came to the credit union industry, I noticed it was conservative and cautious and traditional and insular. And I remember going to different conferences and feeling the carefulness that happened at every single industry event. And I remember wondering to myself, where do the leaders in this industry get new thinking and get new ideas? Because it felt like this kind of echo chamber of thought. And when I would go to different industry events, I would see the same speakers, the same content rolled out. And I thought, where do I get inspiration or new thinking or new ideas? I look to the most innovative organizations and see what I can pick up from those brands and take back to my work so that I can continue to deliver excellence. And so that's what I did. And it was kind of a cool time in Co-op's history in that we had a new CEO. We had Stan Holland, who had started at the time. And I had a tremendous amount of freedom to just say, let's do something different. And so I thought, this is going to be a test. What if I brought the top leaders from the world's most admired companies, brought them into a single event, and let's see if people are out smoking cigars and playing golf. What I found is that they stayed in the sessions. It was fantastic.
Oh, I love that. A couple different things there that you just talked about. I think it's awesome. And as you know, I've told you, Co-op Think is one of my favorite events to go to. And at CUInsight, people actually fight to go to it. So
I love it. Thank you.
It's the one thing on Amanda's calendar that she always is like, I'm going to Think. But something you said there about where did you get your information from personally and like where you looked from, that's something I think when I talk to people about starting CUInsight that always surprised them is I pay very little attention to what people view as our competition.
Right.
And I'm always looking at what's Mashable doing? Someone that you've had at a previous Co-op Think. What's Upworthy doing? You know, Sarah Crutchfield was amazing, but probably one of my favorites.
Yes.
Probably because it related so much to me and I took so many nuggets from it. But that brings me to some of the names that you've had in the past. Cory Booker, running for president right now. Randy Zuckerberg. The idea that you brought Gary Vaynerchuk in to drop F-bombs to a bunch of credit union people was amazing to me. But Tony Hawk and, Michael Phelps last year, you kind of mentioned it talking about like you had a lot of freedom, that Stan had given you freedom. But I really want to stay on that a little bit more. Like, where'd you come up with the audacity to be like, hey, I'm bringing in a senator. I'm bringing in Tony Hawk. We're going to do this completely different. And was there instant buy-in to your idea?
I think my colleagues were kind of perplexed. I think they kind of said, well, okay. I think they didn't understand the power of it and probably didn't give the most credence to what the Co-op annual conference and shareholders meeting, what it used to be, could be for our business and could be for our industry. Co-op is an aggregator of credit unions. We integrate credit unions, we connect them. And I thought, can't we do that same thing with thinking and consulting and thought leadership and engagement? And so the trick is connecting it to the places within the credit union space where we've got work to do. The credit union space has traditionally been risk averse. We're dealing with people's money. So it makes sense that we would be more cautious and careful. And so I wanted to be very thoughtful about the kinds of speakers that we brought in and the brands that we brought in to tie to places where credit unions might traditionally be a little bit more weak. And we would look to those organizations and those companies that are killing it, where credit unions are really striving to get to that place, where they're trying to boost their strategy, their innovation, their marketing prowess, their ability to take something traditional and disrupt it. And so I looked into the industry, outside the industry, into business and said, which companies are doing a fantastic job here? And aligned it to a flow or a narrative that would help credit unions see their confidence in themselves change, help boost their strategy, help them think in a different way where we can apply things that Tony Hawk did in his business to take something as a skater boy and turn it into $1 billion business. We have that same kind of passion in serving members. How do we take member service and people helping people and this value system that we have in the credit union space and attach it to something that's really innovative and grow the business and grow what we can do for our members exponentially?
Gosh, I think that's so wild. And I love the idea. And I'm sure that the feedback that you've gotten over the years, you have to hear it quite a bit. And there's going to be some things I want to touch on that. The one thing I do have to throw out there was how wild would it be if Cory Booker became president and you could be like, I had the president speak at my conference. So I think that
would be wild.
That would be something, wouldn't it?
It would be wild.
Is there a person that you still can't believe that you've gotten to come speak, or a favorite?
I have favorite speakers because of their content. I mean, Michael Phelps coming was just incredible for me and the nicest, most down-to-earth person. I think the ones that just have those tremendous lessons are the most meaningful for me. And what I also loved the intersection of speakers. I think one of my favorite moments on the Think stage, and we've talked about Tony Hawk a lot, it was when we had Sir Ken Robinson, who is the most downloaded TED Talk, talking about finding your element and finding what is true to who you are and using it throughout your life, really leveraging that strength. And having him and Tony Hawk be on the stage with Bill Cheney and Mark Meyer talking about credit union challenges and how to apply that thinking to credit unions. It was so random and at the same time so appropriate and magical. And that kind of strange mashup of thought leaders and recognized people in the world talking to credit unions, I think it's the absolute coolest thing. And I get such joy, and Co-op gets tremendous joy in, again, bringing together opportunities for credit unions that they wouldn't have on their own.
I mean, that's pretty cool. Is that when you're like putting together a future think? Is that what you kind of picture that moment and say, how do I recreate? Or are you looking for?
No.
I'm
by nature, I'm a builder. I work with an incredible team of people, both my peers, my leader, Todd Clark, and my team on the experience team that help the run side of the business. I'm a builder. And what we get a lot of joy out of is innovating on what we've done. And the cool part is that business is constantly changing. I mean, Think started at the advent of the iPhone. We have gone through such disruption in business and financial services with both the economic meltdown of 2008, and we had incredible regulation hit our industry, incredible technology hit our industry. FinTech players started coming in and disrupting. Big tech came in, challenger banks, and they're starting to pick off our member relationships one use case at a time. So Think started to become incredibly important and essential in helping our credit unions figure out how to move and modify and evolve and digitally disrupt ourselves to be able to compete in this marketplace. I mean, we have banks and technology companies that are spending upwards of billions of dollars a year. The top 3 banks are spending between $1.5 and $3 billion annually in CX work and technology and digitally evolving how they deliver to maintain that relationship. And so it's never been more important for us to have really strong strategy, really strong thinking, to not get overwhelmed, to not be in that place of fear, but to really see the opportunity and dig into that and cooperate. I mean, Co-op's about cooperation, credit unions are about sharing, and we're about doing what's right for the member. Think has been one of the catalysts to help bring all of us together and bring us forward. And that's what we're excited about at Co-op.
That's awesome. Is there one person that if you could have at Think that you haven't yet, let's just say?
Dude, I've got a whole list of people, but I look for speakers who have been incredibly, I want to say disruptive, but they've made incredible change in the work that they've done. And so people like Malala Yousafzai, Indira Nooyi, the CEO of Pepsi. I am partial to women leaders, Michelle Obama. I'd love to have her.
That would be amazing.
Mark Benioff, he's done, he's built Salesforce into a powerhouse of a company. Lin-Manuel Miranda would be incredible.
Yep.
I love leaders and thought leaders and titans of industry that have come in and had the audacity to have a crazy idea, go against the status quo and really make a huge difference and have that strength and that confidence and that enthusiasm to go after it. So those are some of the people on my list that I would love to have. Incredibly expensive and highly sought after, but you can't go big, then why do it at all? So those speakers, but it's also just aligning it to all of the things that are important to our industry. What's important to us is making sure we could bring out a collection of speakers and be done. What's really important to us is making sure that they align into insights and things that credit unions can activate to make change within what's happening in their environment today. There's so many overwhelming things for our space that's what's important to me.
That's one of the things that I always take from Think is this. I think it makes you think bigger, in that sense where it's very easy to get into our day to day. And I always find Think to be a few days of going, how does that relate? What can I take from that? What can I do?
Right.
Even here at CUInsight. 2 things. Has there been a big change when you think back over the last 12 years in the Think conference? And what can people look forward to this year?
I think the change has been that we've been continually perfecting how to bring it home to what we're facing in the day-to-day. It's challenging for any conference, for any place where we're about to go to GAC and gather with thousands of our colleagues and go talk about what's happening in the industry. I think it's challenging for any conference to bring really actionable insights where you may come home from a conference and you've taken so many notes and you may engage with that brand throughout the year. What's most important is really, and what we work hard to do is to really apply it to what Co-op's doing today. What are things that we are delivering to help credit unions succeed in this environment? And then how do we make it really applicable and relevant and able to be activated for the credit unions as they are today? So for this year, we're digging into a lot of the challenges that credit unions are seeing today. I do a lot of board planning sessions. And when I go into those meetings, I see big eyes and kind of feeling, I get a sense of being that credit union leadership can get overwhelmed. There's so much to do. There's so much change and a desperate need for innovation, both back of house and how we operate, how we integrate our services to be able to deliver the front of house experience that consumers are expecting today, because that's what they get from Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple. So they're expecting that, and they're seeing Capital One and Wells Fargo and Chase and B of A and new challenger banks coming in, and they're delivering like Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple. So what we're really looking at this year is how to not have that be so overwhelming. How do we look at the ways that you can look at our 21st century value proposition and say, how do we become that trustworthy financial digital delivery system that will retain those member relationships and grow them? And that's the first thing that we'll tackle, kind of that big picture. And then we get down to strategic agility. How do you actually behave as a payments and digital engagement platform? That's what end members are expecting. How can I use my payments as swiftly and simply as possible? And from the credit union perspective, how do I integrate my traditional channels with my payments channels to boost deposits and grow volume and grow engagement, to then be able to do what I love to do best, which is lend? And so these are all of the things that we're focused on helping our credit unions continue to evolve and grow. And then, of course, we spend the last day of Think focusing on customer experience and how you make the right product choices and optimize that experience within credit union's individual roadmap with how they optimize the payment experience and bring it all together. There's going to be really kind of near-term views on this, on how do I just better manage my payments portfolio, and how do I look kind of in this bigger picture perspective on how I think about digital disruption and integrate that into my business. And we have incredible speakers from Seth Godin, Jose Andres, the CIO of a country, Estonia, on how if you can digitize a country, you can digitize a credit union. So just incredible thought leaders and brands that are going to help bring this all together.
I love that line. If you can digitize a country, you can digitize a credit union. That's so great.
Right.
A couple questions before we kind of move on to the second part. If we were to talk a week after Think, what is it that makes you kind of kick back and go, we nailed that? And maybe on the flip side of that, is there something that, if you think back over the past decade, that where you were just like, we can do better afterwards? Do you have that kind of self-talk after?
Oh, 100%. And I think that's with anything. I mean, excellence is something that's paramount for me personally. Go big or go home. Give it your best. That's something that is important within our culture at Co-op too. So I'm glad I'm aligned within the culture of my organization. When I see that the storyline and the narrative and the key learnings connect, that it isn't just thought leadership. One of our board members, Chuck Purvis, he's my favorite barometer of what worked and what didn't. Because I'm assigned to 10 clients. I'm a concierge for several of our top clients, and Coastal Credit Union was one of my favorites. Not that there are favorites, but they're a great progressive credit union. And Chuck will tell me, Sam, that was so much thought leadership. How do I bring it home? How do I ground that? And I love it when he says that made sense. Like, I took a lot out of that. That was really helpful. I can have my team go apply this right now. So of course, I want them to have an incredible experience while they're there, but it's really the ideas that they carry with them throughout the year that helps me know that it was important and valuable. And ultimately, I want the experience that we deliver to be essential to the credit unions that attend. And we get a 94% approval rating. I mean, the it's like incredible.
Who are those 6%?
I know, right? It's pretty amazing to have that kind of feedback and see how that engagement continues throughout the year as well.
Chuck Purvis is one of my favorites as well. He was a mentor when I went through DE a few years back. So I actually got to spend time with him, get to know him.
He's an incredible leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there long-held beliefs in credit unions that you think will change significantly in just the next few years? You know, kind of that short-term time frame, not 20 years, the next 12 months, 18 months, 24 months.
Long-held beliefs for credit unions. I mean, I think what's important for credit unions is to hold on to who they are and the values that sustained them. Those beliefs are the right beliefs. The challenge for us is to say, how do we continue to deliver that value? What's right for the member in an environment that's sands shifting under our feet? I mean, the evolution of the financial service space is, as we all know, is crazy. And that idea of doing what's right for a membership can still be true and the most important and relevant thing today. With all of this swift shifting that's happening in the financial services space, people need credit unions more than ever. They need somebody who's watching out for them. We just have to help the end consumer understand that we are the right solution for them. And the way that we do that is by demonstrating our passion and our value for the end member in the way that we deliver. That's why experience is so important. That's how we use technology to deliver an incredible experience for our member. That's what service means today. That mindset it has never been more essential, and the opportunity has never been greater to connect with more consumers who need us. I think it's a huge opportunity, and I think more credit unions are really seeing that. And I think things that are happening in the payment space, and you talked about this a week or two ago with Chuck Fagan, it's interesting to see how big payments players are really disrupting. They're consolidating, and they're making the world smaller. They're eliminating choice for credit unions, and it's never been more important to have CUSOs like Co-op, like CUNA Mutual, like PSCU, everybody in the CUSO space to be focused on credit unions. And what's special about Co-op is that we give you choice. We aggregate so many different providers, and our focus has been on building this seamless ecosystem, making it an agile, integrative environment that makes it really easy to bring in new solutions and makes the core not as important, the back-end technology. It's just a back-end system. We have to put all of that value on top of it so that we can continue to serve members in the ways that they expect and be able to do it.
I think that's the perfect transition into kind of the part 2 of the show. What was it about credit unions that inspired you to build a career at Co-op?
Well, to be honest, I expected to be at Co-op maybe 2 years. I mean, being
sucked in.
I know it was really different. And I had come from consulting and wanted to see about going in-house somewhere and being able to build a team and follow through on thinking that I had been delivering. I wanted to see that come to fruition and actually finish something that I had recommended. And so I thought I would do that for 2 years and then go on to something else because frankly, credit unions just didn't seem that sexy. However, the more I dug in, what I appreciate so much about the credit union industry is the authenticity and the heart and the passion around doing what's right. It's the character of the credit union space that makes it so endearing and has kept me in it for the last 14 years. So I love that. And I think it's critical that we continue to be that because within financial services, it's about doing what's right for the shareholder. It's about making quarterly earnings. It's doing what the street wants. It's not doing what's right for the end member. It's not doing what's right for the human. And it's our humanity that makes us so unique and special, and especially crazy within financial services. Like that's what's so amazing is our humanity, the intersection of humanity and financial services.
It sounds like the inspiration changed over time as credit unions sucked you in. So
for sure. I loved it. And for me, it was aligned with who I feel I am as a leader and an individual. That's important to me.
What's been the biggest change in credit unions that you've seen over the past 14 years?
They've had to adapt. They've had to change from being this careful, cautious, insular industry to being agile and open and fast and demanding. And I think we've been finding our mojo. I think the credit union space has really found its strategic confidence to be bold and to know that they are advocating for their members. So we have to, as an industry, make big choices and really fight for what's right. So it's really cool seeing more of that power come out of the credit union space and the boldness come out of the credit union space. Speaking
of something cool, it had to be pretty cool for Simon Sinek to share your Forbes article on human leadership skills last year. That had to be pretty wild.
That was amazing. I'm a journalist, and my degree is in journalism, and I love writing. I love good storytelling, and I love it when it's paired with tremendous thinking. It's not a coincidence that our conference is called Think. I love thought work and really analyzing how we continue to grow and evolve as humans and in business. And so I had written an article. I've been contributing to Forbes for the last 3 years or so, talking about leadership and client experience and transformation and strategy and humans sometimes. I had written an article, or I had been thinking about, it's interesting in my time at Co-op, I think the marketing function was seen as an unimportant, unessential function within the financial services space. And I also feel that I was a young, up-and-coming female leader. And I knew that I was kind of seen as just not that important to the space. And I took that as an opportunity to say, like, I'm going to show you. And I believe 100% differently that I am critical to this company. I'm critical to this industry, and I can make a difference. And during that time, I started to think that kind of leadership in cutting across an organization and building human connection to gain informal leadership, to have people follow you whether you have a title or not, to make change within an organization, to create an agile, empathetic, transformational environment is a leadership that is not taught in business school. We have traditionally been taught a very hierarchical, top-down form of leadership and management. And what is needed today in a digital environment is really cutting across an organization. It's much more based on servant leadership. And what you see in technology companies is the idea of humanity, critical thinking, empathy, connection, collaboration. Those are the ways that you find strategic agility within organizations. And so I wrote an article about human-based leadership and why that's so critical to business today. And it happens to be pretty innate within female leaders, but anybody can do it. It's just tapping in to being your authentic self and driving for what feels best from a human perspective, not necessarily kind of business top down, that traditional 20th century kind of assembly line way of managing. And I wrote this little article for Forbes, and Simon Sinek shared it with his 1 million+ followers. I was on a plane and I dropped my laptop. I couldn't believe it. It was so cool.
Absolutely. And we'll link to that article below. Amazing. It brings me to something that Jill and I have talked a lot about, which is human integration. You were talking about it in the digital sense. You went over a lot of it, but why do you view that overall? Or I guess, let me ask this a different way. Is it something that you view as changed, say, in the past decade because of technology or digital?
Well, I don't think it's changed. This idea of human-based leadership or servant leadership is a concept that came up in the 1970s. It came into vogue for a while in the 70s, but culturally, I don't think as a workforce in general, we were there yet. We've come from a very kind of command and control style of leadership. But the fact that we've evolved and the way we do business today has evolved so dramatically, it requires a different kind of leadership. This human-based leadership has never been more important because 4 out of 5 IT executives are telling their bosses they expect to see a negative impact on revenue. The digitization is causing business to say, we are operating on this like 1980s kind of delivery model, this operating model, but we're delivering real-time technology where people expect real-time responses. We can't have those things be that disconnected. Our operating model and the way that we work together has to be different. We have to have this redesign of our organizations to behave in this integrated fashion. And that human-based leadership helps us get there. It helps us, I like to say that it helps us to be bionic. It's kind of that intersection of technology and the way that we deliver that makes us be able to be as effective and compassionate in the way that we do business.
Do you think, I'm going off script a little bit here, scratching my own itch again. Do you think that your leadership style or, like when you're describing the more human leadership, is that something that has grown in you over time and with experience? Is it something that was kind of always there? I'm really thinking of like how you would describe your leadership style today compared to, as you mentioned, a few years back where you were like, I might not have the title, but I'm going to intertwine myself in all these decisions.
For sure. It has evolved over time. And sometimes I think I don't want to be too shaped by the pressures that we all have, the politics, and as you move up in the world, you start to lose some of your boldness. And because ignorance is bliss. I mean, when I was in my 20s and I had my first team, I'm like, we're going to do this and it's going to be amazing. And that kind of energy and boldness and audacity was innate. I have always thought it is important to have really high expectations and really high accountability. When I say lead with empathy and compassion, lead with love, I do not mean everything, it's all okay. I have very high expectations for myself, my team, my colleagues, my boss. I expect a lot and they expect a lot of me. And I think that that's exciting and empowering. So I believe in high expectations, high accountability, great freedom, and leading by being a human first, but also having really clear boundaries with that you have to, I call it firm kindness. You can still be kind, but there needs to be strength in that as well.
When you're looking at your co-op team as a whole, what would you say is the greatest strength in that group?
I work with some incredible leaders. It's been an exciting few years since Todd's come on board, and Nick Calcanes and Dean Michaels and Matt Cardell. And we've had some incredible new leaders join our team with Bruce Drott and Cheryl Middleton Jones. We've had some really cool leaders come on board. And I think that diversity of thought has been one of my favorite things. When I came up, I got promoted into the executive team. I was not a legacy executive team leader. I didn't report to the CEO originally. And I feel honored to be promoted into executive leadership and to work alongside people who have run multi-billion-dollar organizations that have been executive leaders in massive organizations and be able to, I questioned myself. I said, can I hang with these leaders? Can I keep up? Can I do this? And it's important to have humility and be humble and be willing to always learn and kind of get over yourself. But I think that strength of diverse thinking and passion for what we do, to get it right and to keep evolving is critical. And it's something that I appreciate from my peers. From my team, I appreciate their sense of urgency and their passion for being even better and never resting on their laurels. So it makes the work fun. I mean, that's why I thought I'd be here 2 years and I'm here 14. I crack myself up with that, but it's been just a joy and so much fun. And the clients, they're just incredible people and doing amazing work in our industry.
One of my favorite questions to ask is there something that you've said to your team so many times they can finish your sentence?
They have a drinking game that every time I say infographic, they all take a shot. But no, I ask them to show their thinking. If they have not documented a plan, and anybody listening to this that has worked with me will laugh, but I like to test thinking to make sure it's right, to make sure that we've really thought about it from every angle and that what we're doing is as good as it can be, that we've given it our best. And so it's hard to test that I do that for myself. I write a plan and I send it around to Nick and to Matt and to Bruce and to Todd and say, okay, poke holes in this. And having that ability to be vulnerable and confident enough to have your work ripped apart, I think is so exciting and can really grow you as a leader and make the work even better. So that's a long answer to what I would say, but I'm like, show your thinking.
Show your thinking. I agree with you there. I've talked about it before on previous shows, having those people that I can bring ideas to that I know aren't just going to go, that's a great idea, right?
Right.
They're going to look at it and go, they'll tear it apart, maybe tell me it's a terrible idea, but it's always that, please tell me more. What am I missing here, right? So right. I absolutely love that. Do you have a favorite failure that's maybe led to a success? I know this sounds like an interview question, but I mean, that's kind of what we're doing. But that you can think of where you're like, wow, I'm glad that didn't work out that way.
I think a failure or something that I've come to understand is what I'm not good at. I am not good at operationalizing a plan or coming up with the structure of how we will deliver. And I've learned that I need to surround myself with people that complement my personal strengths and fill in for where I'm weak. And that has helped us move so much faster. I can make myself operationalize a plan and figure it out, but I would get an F in Excel. If I see something in Excel, I cannot read it. So I work with incredible leaders who are production maniacs and who are operational maniacs that can align their thinking with our broad-based strategy and bring it to life. And so that's been important to me to know, yeah, Sam, you're not so good at that. Maybe call for reinforcements.
To me, that's one of the, I think, greatest gifts of experience is, and maybe age even, is that idea of being able to go, yep, I don't have to be good at everything. Please, let me just do the stuff I like and I'm good at. So has there been a piece of advice or a life lesson over time that you've held on to and that you find yourself referring back to over and over again?
I've worked with some incredible leaders, and I'm a big believer in documenting your vision for what you want something to be. So I worked with an incredible leader in my strategy consulting days who said, without a plan, any road will take you anywhere. Like you can go anywhere without a really focused plan. And for myself, I wrote down goals that I put on the inside of my bathroom mirror and my bathroom cabinet that I look at every day to say, I want to travel to these places. I want to write a book. I would like to give a TED Talk. I would like to learn from the most incredible people in the world. And it's interesting when I look at those things that seem so crazy over time, I'm like, I did that. It just kind of happens. It is kind of unintentional, but when you document your dreams, they tend to become a reality. So it's really fun. And I've always come back to that, whether that's in business or in life.
Is there some way that you hold yourself accountable to those dreams?
Some of it, they just happen, but I like to break it down. And obviously you break the things that you can control into steps and push yourself. They have to be uncomfortable. They have to be stretch goals that just drive us to be better. And I think that makes life so much richer. And my husband, he helps hold me accountable. He has his own list and we talk about it, and you have to talk about it and plan and think of the future together. So I appreciate that a lot.
I agree with you there. When you run into a wall, you're kind of hitting your head up against a problem. Is there anything you do to, whether it's take a step back, take a different look at it, lean on other people? Is there something that you do to bust through that frustrating time?
Perspective is important. I think we live so much of our lives reacting. We're so busy that we react to everything that's coming at us. I have a short patience threshold. I'm a very impatient person, which I serve on a lot of boards in the industry. I'm sure they've noticed that, and my team, but it always comes from a place of passion. And I get frustrated when I don't have that time to have perspective, because my best thinking comes out when I can have some space to kind of cogitate and marinate in a problem that I'm trying to solve creatively. You also need thought partners. You need collaboration. And I think having that vulnerability to say, like, I don't know the answer to this. Can I pick your brain? Can I have you 10 people read this and tell me what I'm missing? What have I not thought about? I just think one brain can only go so far, as when you bring in diverse, multiple perspectives that can take an idea so much further. And then that's helped me spark new and different ideas. It might be a right turn on the original problem I was intending to solve. And that's when it's really fun. I think that's when you really get amazing things happening within an organization.
I agree with you. If you have a free day, there's nothing on the calendar. What does Sam do to recharge? What does work-life balance or work-life integration look like to you?
It's hard. It's super hard. There's a lot of cognitive load in all of us running our busy lives. And so I love to see live music. I'm a big live music concert person. I love to go dancing. And I love being outside in nature, doing hiking, mountain biking, skiing, seeing wide open spaces. Travel is a big deal. We live in Southern California in a coastal community, and it's just, if I can get a break to go on a walk with my 7-year-old or my husband near the beach and let him scooter while I listen to music, and just having time together is one of the greatest joys. And it gives me peace and a sense of calm, which you need in this busy, busy life.
It is a busy world. I want to be respectful of your time, so I'm going to move on to the rapid fire questions. That being said, the questions are rapid. Your answers do not have to be. So take all the time you need here. Do you have any daily routines that if you just don't do them, your day feels off?
Coffee is critical. But it's funny, I'm an early riser, and I probably still stay horizontal for the first hour and a half of my day reading. I'm a huge consumer of content, and it's critical to read and critical to keep up on everything that's happening in the world and in business and opening your perspective. If we remain too insular, our ideas are only going to be so big. So coffee and reading in the morning is one of my favorite activities, and just having peace in the morning. One of my pet peeves is to go wake up, get on a call. It is the worst. So I try to create space to be as thoughtful as possible.
I do the same.
I'm paid to think. I'm paid to think for a living. So I need space to be able to do that.
I do everything I can to create space. So do you remember the first time you got in trouble, like memorable trouble?
Oh, geez.
That you can share.
I got in trouble when I took out my grandmother's Cadillac when I was 15 years old and took it for a spin. I was being bold and adventurous and testing the boundaries of my parents' patience. Yeah, the football team jumped on the car, which was great. Yeah. And I had to do some repair that came out of my babysitting work. So it was a good lesson in I was testing my independence and freedom, perhaps a little too.
I think we all did.
That was a fun one.
Yeah, that's a.
Thanks, Grams, for the caddy.
Sorry, Grandma. The random question here: what's the best album of all time? The one you can listen to every song on.
Oh, Fleetwood Mac Rumors, 100%.
That's a good one. That's for sure.
And I've seen them 4 times in concert. They're not the same without Lindsey Buckingham. I'm sorry, Fleetwood Mac without Lindsey Buckingham is not. Just isn't right.
You're not Fleetwood Mac anymore.
Album.
No, that's awesome.
Yes.
We're gonna have one heck of a playlist at the end of the year from this show. I'm a reader. Jill and I have stacks of books around our house from people referring us books, and Amazon makes it way too easy. Is there a book that either you've gifted or that you've just recommended a lot over the course of your life, or maybe even recently?
Yeah. We have Jean Chatsky. She's become a good friend. A lot of our Think speakers have become friends and collaborators and contributors to Co-op. And she and I were talking about books and financial empowerment. And one that, my parents didn't teach me about financial education and financial literacy. And I had to be self-taught when I graduated from college. And I picked up a book by Kate White, who happens to be a friend of Jean's. And it's called Why Good Girls Don't Get Ahead, But Gutsy Girls Do. And it changed my life. It was about financial education and managing your career. And I was a pain in the neck. When I first was working, I was in my boss's office probably every other month asking for a raise and demonstrating, look at what I did. And I'm going to keep driving this business. And that book helped me really own what I'm capable of and not be afraid to grab hold of that and own it and ask for what is right for my own growth. And I think so many women leaders can bring so much to organizations, and organizations need women leaders. And that book, Why Good Girls Don't Get Ahead, But Gutsy Girls Do by Kate White, really taught me that at 23 years old, that I use at 44 today. So it's a good book. I love it.
That's awesome. We will link to that in the show notes so everybody can go out and get it. As you've gotten older, what's become more important to you, and has anything become less important?
Time. Time is so important, and having that time with the people that are most important to you. I'm a mother and a wife and a friend and a daughter and a colleague, and remembering all of those things in this busy life, and remembering that it's okay to be authentic and to not feel like you have to be this business person, but that you can bring your whole self everywhere you go. And it has been something that I've become more and more confident and comfortable with, and something that I think is really important. I think if I were to talk to my 25-year-old self, I wouldn't have the same confidence to just say, just own who you are, be authentically who you are, and you'll make an even bigger difference for the things that you're passionate about.
I love that. The question that I didn't send you, but I knew I would ask you, is when you hear the word success, who's the first person that comes to mind?
Oprah Winfrey. And ideally, I'd like to put myself in there. I mean, I'm proud of what I have been able to do with my family and building a life and growing myself to be what I deem a success to be. And I'm proud to surround myself with such incredible colleagues and leaders. And I do not want that to sound braggy.
I don't think it does.
It's also aspirational. I think it's important to envision how success changes for you and where you can go with it.
I absolutely love that answer. It's if people are listening, I have this huge smile on my face because I believe we all define our own success. So huge fan of that answer.
But there's other people that are incredible leaders that help us give ideas and inspiration and kind of goalposts for us to reach toward, like Oprah Winfrey, like Mark Benioff, like Lin-Manuel Miranda. I mean, these are people that I just admire for their creative courage. And those are things that I seek to do in my life. So if I have that kind of creative courage, I see myself as a success.
I love that. That to me is the perfect way to wrap this up. The final question, do you have any asks of our listeners or any final thoughts?
I think this is a time for us to not worry or be concerned. It's a time for us to see all of the opportunity around us and go after it with our whole selves every day. We can get overwhelmed and feel fearful and feel concerned and wring our hands and not know how to best plan the future of our credit unions. And I think this is the time we talk about opportunity never rests. This is the time that is the biggest opportunity for credit unions. As the industry is being disrupted, why don't we take hold of that disruption and make it our own?
Awesome. Thank you again, Sam, so much for taking the time. If people have additional questions of you, is Twitter a good way to get a hold of you, or email? Or
yeah, that'd be great. Or LinkedIn.
All right. We will link to Sam's social profiles below. So if you have more questions, you'll know where to find her and everything else we talked about. But Sam, again, thank you so very much. I can't wait to see you in DC and then at Think down the road. So I appreciate you. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Randy, I appreciate you. It's such a wonderful pleasure to be on the show, and I wish you all the success in the world. It's so fun to see CUInsight do such tremendous things for our industry.
Thank you, Sam. Well, have a great day, and I'll see you very soon.
Thank you.